Hi everyone, my name is Rachel and welcome to the French Seams. Thanks very much for joining me again for another video. This is my 5k Q&A. So first of all, a huge thank you to all you lovely people who have subscribed and got me to that 5k milestone. I really do appreciate every like, every thumbs up, every comment, every subscription. So thank you very much. I'd also like to say a massive thank you for everybody who sent in questions, both on YouTube and over on Instagram. So I got so many questions. They were so great on a variety of topics. I had so much fun reading through them and thinking about them. Some are quite thought-provoking, so it was really good. Thank you very much. I've got them all listed down. I've got them categorized. I've got a few questions on life, a few questions on sewing, and a few questions which I've grouped as other. So I'll put in chapters for those down below if you'd like to skip ahead. So before I get started, I'll show you what I'm wearing. So this is the La Brea tee by Half Moon Atelier, which I made last summer and I absolutely love it. It comes in two versions. This is version 1, which is for knit fabric, and it's got these beautiful binding all the way along. And then you can do version 2, or version B, I should say, which is for woven fabrics. And it's a beautiful pattern. Absolutely love it. And this fabric, this lovely bottle green jersey, is from Ecobee. So yeah, love this. And also today I've got on a new purchase for myself. So I treated myself recently to these beautiful green sparkly heart earrings from the lovely Becky. She's on Instagram as What Beck Sews, but she's got a fabulous Etsy shop called Jazz and Wow. I'll link it below, and she does the most beautiful jewellery. She does buttons as well, but I just loved the colour of these. They're green and sparkly, so tick for me, and I think they match perfectly with this t-shirt. So without further ado, I'll get going, shall I? Right, the first question, where do I live? So this was an easy one. So I live in Dublin. I've lived in Dublin now almost 20 years. I'm originally from Cork, which is in the south of Ireland, so about a 2.5-hour drive away. But I've lived in Dublin, yes, almost 20 years, and do not ask me where those 20 years have gone. So how did I meet Mr. French Seams? So you'll hear me often talk about Mr. French Seams, or the sainted Mr. French Seams as I call him. So we actually met through mutual friends. We were both living in Dublin, but we both met in Cork, and we met up for dinner and just took it from there. So we've been together almost 12 years now. So, and he is just wonderful. He's the best husband and the best friend in the whole world. And how long have we been married? So we are married 9 years this year. So yes, nuts. So looking forward to doing something nice for our anniversary this year. What do I do for work and how did I choose it? So I got so many questions about what I do for a living, so many questions, and I don't know, did I ever mention it on here before? I'm not quite sure. Basically, I'm a program manager for an IT company. So I went to university in Cork. I did business and computing a long time ago, and after that I moved to Dublin and I worked as a mainframe software developer. So I was a coder, a developer, and then I was at that for a number of years, and then I switched to the company that I'm with now. So I've been with them for a long time. So I basically had 2 jobs in the past 20 years. So yes, I've been with them for quite a number of years and it's good. I enjoy it. I'm back in the office now 3 days a week, which has changed my wardrobe choices and my sewing preferences. But that's basically what I do for a living. So it's a busy job, it's a challenging job, and that coupled with 2 small children. So you know how that goes. And one of the other questions was juggling sewing in everyday life. How do I find time to sew? So this is a big one. I got an awful lot of questions on this as well. So yes, 2 small children. Older French Seams is 4.5 and younger French Seams is 2.5. So and I do love to sew for them. I really do. But they're in full-time daycare, or creche as I call it, because myself and my husband both work full-time. So the reason I can balance working and sewing is, 1, sainted Mr. French Seams. He knows that it's something I really enjoy. So basically my 2 boys go to bed at 8 o'clock in the evening. We're incredibly lucky. So they're both in bed by 8. I usually sew most, if not every evening, between 8 and 9. 8 and 10 maybe, depending on what's on TV. And my husband just knows that's what I do. After they both go to bed, I just do a bit of sewing, then go downstairs, do a bit of a clean, bit of a tidy, watch some TV with him, and that's basically how I get the sewing done. So it's only in the evenings. I can't do sewing during the day at all. During the week I'm working, and then at the weekends then it's family time. So it's purely, you'll find me sewing between 8 and 10 p.m. pretty much every night. So that's how I juggle it. And then if I didn't sew, what would I do? So this is a very clever one actually. So I would imagine I'd still be doing something crafty. So I do enjoy cooking and baking and stuff, but I don't know, could that be like a full-time hobby the way sewing is? So I would definitely be doing some sort of fibre art or something. Is that what you call it? So I love cross stitch. So I think I showed this in a Vlogmas about 2 years ago. So this was my very first cross stitch. So I think I did this when I was about 10, and my mum got it framed for me recently because I just love it. So don't look too closely. The stitching is a bit off, but I just love it. I think he is so cute. And yeah, literally I must have done this when I was about 10. My teacher at the time in school taught us all to cross stitch, and I just adored it. So I think I would cross stitch because it's a wonderful couch hobby. You've often heard me talk about crochet, and that leads me to another question I got on this blanket, which I often have behind me. So my lovely granny gave me some wool a couple of years ago, and I just found a chevron pattern for it, so I'll link that down below. And this was my first kind of foray into crochet. If you watch my channel, you'll know that my sister is a fabulous crochet. She made the most beautiful blankets for my boys, and I try and learn from her, but that was my first attempt. So I would say I'd do crochet, I'd do knitting, I'd do cross stitch. But also what I love doing is jewellery. And I actually have a kit that I bought from Aldi, I think, to make your own jewellery from mouldable clay. I must try and do that. But I did a jewellery making course a couple of years ago. So I'll show you the few pieces that I made. So I made this ring. I just adore jewellery, always have, loved shiny things. So I made these earrings, which I think are very, very cute. And then I made this little pendant to put on a necklace. So it's a little jewel with a little clasp at the top. And then I made this little necklace with a star on it. And it's a kind of hammered texture. Spin it around. That little hammered texture, which I think is really, really nice. So I did the class in a jewellery school in Dublin. I'll link it below. Really, really enjoyed it. I did it for weeks and weeks. I think I did a couple back to back just because I enjoyed it so much. So I would definitely be doing something crafty, something with my hands, something to keep myself occupied. So that's probably what I'd do if I didn't sew. But I'm not moving away from sewing anytime soon. And the final question here was great. Where do I see myself in 5 years? So what an interview question. That's just great. So in 5 years, my boys will be a little bit older. They'll be, what will they be, almost 10 and almost 7, so a little bit older. We might be able to do a little bit more traveling with them, go maybe further afield, which I'd love to do. Hopefully I'm still sewing. I wonder, will I have won the lottery and kind of move somewhere hot and sunny, or maybe jetting around the world? I don't know, but it's very difficult to see. Like 5 years ago, I never thought that I'd be here. So I'm really looking forward to what the next 5 years holds. I'll be getting on to another roundy birthday, which will cause some celebrations because I had my last roundy birthday during COVID, so that wasn't cause for a huge celebration. So, but yeah, in 5 years, watch this space. I think hopefully good things are coming, hopefully. So that rounds off the life questions. Moving on to the sewing questions. So these formed the bulk of it, they really did. So how did I get into sewing and how long ago was that? So we moved into this house 7 years ago, and I bought a sewing machine because I bought new curtains and had the great intention of hemming those curtains. If you watch my Vlogmas last year, I hemmed those curtains last year, so it took about 6 years to hem them. And the reason for that is that I went to a sewing class, which was literally at the end of our road here because there's a school and they did some adult education classes, one of which was sewing. So I went along one evening and said, right, I think I'd like to give this a go. And that was it. I just loved that class. It was just wonderful. So it was kind of the basics of sewing, although my mum had taught me the basics of sewing when I was little. You sew little things for your dollies, but really kind of looking at patterns and proper garment sewing. So I did that, I think, for about 6 weeks. Absolutely loved it. There was a girl there who was sewing a Tilly and the Buttons pattern, which is the first I'd heard of it. So I had huge interest in what she was doing. I think it was might have been the, oh, I can't remember what it was, one of her earlier patterns, I think. And after that class, I moved on to the lovely Zaria, who's the city seamstress on Instagram. I'll link her channel below. She does sewing classes in Dublin, fabulous classes. I went to her a few times. And after that, it was mainly the University of YouTube and Instagram. I discovered the sewing Instagram community. I discovered YouTube videos, fabric shops, and I just went down such a rabbit hole and I have not come back out. So it was mainly that gave me the kind of push, discovering garment sewing, discovering a few fabric shops in Ireland, and that just set me on the path and I've never ever looked back. So it's probably seriously garment sewing for about 7 years, I believe, and it's all thanks to those lovely in-person classes and then obviously what I learned online. So who inspires me? Who do I love watching and what content do I like? So the inspiration comes from you lovely people, the sewing community. So people I see on Instagram, people I see on YouTube. I was recently very inspired. I went to a wedding and the clothes of that wedding were fabulous, so I got inspiration from that. But mainly it's from what people are sewing and wearing on Instagram. And I've had the benefit of meeting those lovely people in real life and being able to have discussions over that, and learning about new patterns and everything is what really I enjoy. So it's the inspiration comes from that, from the actual sewing community itself. Who do I love watching? So I watch a load of YouTube videos, and I'm actually way behind. I think I'm at least 2 weeks behind on my YouTube videos. So if I do watch your channel, I'm probably getting messages from you way too late. So I love watching YouTube videos, and that's basically how I got into it. So about 6-7 years ago, I discovered Lisa Comfort. Actually was one of the first people I started watching, from Sew Over It. So I'm not going to list out everybody I watch here because it's a huge list, and I don't want to single out anybody because everybody is wonderful and I enjoy watching everybody's channel for different reasons. But from a content point of view, I love the plans, I love the makes. Basically that appeals to my my structure, my plans and my makes. I really enjoy the follow me around videos and the can I make this videos, little tutorials, little bits and bobs tutorials, and I really do enjoy the Vlogmas videos. So I've done Vlogmas for the past 2 years, I think. 3 years? No, 2 years. Really enjoyed doing that. So I do love watching the Vlogmas content. 1, because I love Christmas, and 2, just because it's really fun in the lead up to Christmas to have lovely sewing content every single day. Although it is challenging to keep up, it really is. It's the Vlogmas anxiety. So the next one is advice for a sewer, and this is really good. So yes, I'm not quite sure, was this from a beginner point of view or just from a sewer in general? So I would always say, take your time. Enjoy it. If it's your hobby, if you have the luxury of it being your hobby, just enjoy it. There's always more fabric. Try everything. Don't do what I do, do what I say, but do a little toile. And I don't even mean an entire garment, I mean just one specific piece. So for example, I made the Charlie Kaftan a couple of years ago, a collaboration with the lovely Claire from Stitch Hem Sew. And it has a very interesting panel at the waist, and I didn't want to try that on my real fabric, so I did a very quick toile, scrap piece of fabric, and it was the best thing I ever did, because then when I went to my actual fabric I knew exactly what I was doing, and it takes the fear out of it. So even if you can try one little bit as a practice, I think it really helps. Having the correct thread, I know it's a basic thing, but having the correct thread and needle can make a massive difference. And yeah, just try loads of techniques, try loads of fabric, try loads of patterns, because each pattern company has a different block. Some might suit you, some mightn't. It might just be that you're getting frustrated with a particular pattern, but if you tried another pattern company for a similar garment, it might work out perfectly. So I think just experiment, enjoy, take your time and have fun. Oh, and read the instructions properly, because I don't. Just skimming through them, and then I make a mistake, and which comes back to bite me. And so I think read the pattern. They know more about what they're talking about than you do, which is a lesson that I really need to teach myself. And yeah, just read the pattern and just enjoy. So what tools would I like to get? So I have quite a few sewing tools that I've amassed over the past couple of years, but one that I really must get, based on a previous video that I put out last week, I would like to get a little quilting extension for my Juki. So I believe it's a little stick that comes out of your foot that gives you a guideline, because I'm having mixed results in doing a guideline on my quilting projects. They're not quilting projects, they're quilted items for bags and stuff, which I've love doing. So I think that's going to be my next purchase. I also would like I think they're called duckbill scissors. It's used for grading seams. So if you've sewn a seam and then both sides are the same size, if you cut one down slightly less, it makes a seam less bulky, and I think there's a special scissors for doing that, which I would like to buy. How do I store my patterns? So I've got one right here. This is how I store my patterns. So I only buy indie patterns. So this is another question, do I do indie or big four patterns? So mainly 99.999% indie patterns. I have one big four pattern that I made in that class that I spoke about, and this is it. It is Burda 6721. So this is years old. So I made this version without the pockets, and I still have it. It's going strong. So here it is. It's a lovely little shift dress. It's fully lined and everything. I'm well impressed I made to do that. When you don't know, you don't know, isn't that right? So love this, but that's literally the only indie pattern I've ever made. The only big four pattern, I should say, sorry. The rest I just buy indie patterns for a number of reasons. The availability, basically, because I find it tricky here in Ireland to buy paper patterns, and I don't want to pay for shipping after I've already paid the money to buy a pattern. I also don't like tracing. I far prefer on the indie patterns that you can use layers, so you can just print out your size. I print them out mainly on my printer here, A4, stick them together, and this is how I store them. I roll them up and then I tie them with the latest fabric that I've made the garment out of, so I can tell instantly what it is. And then I just have them in a little box, and then I go through them every once in a while and recycle the ones I don't use anymore. So yes, I just print them out. Sometimes I print on A0 or get them A0 copy shop printed, but again, that's adding to the cost because I've already bought the pattern. But I do tend to do that if it's a huge pattern like a full-length dress or like a jacket where there's loads and loads of pieces where it's just too exhaustive to print on the PDF. But that's mainly the reason that I do indie patterns. Also, the designs are ones I like. I've heard horror stories about the E's in the Big Four. I'm not quite sure how true that is, but I didn't want to try. I'm just afraid of them. So that's mainly why I stick to the indie patterns, and the availability and the instant gratification that I get from liking a pattern, clicking download and printing it off straight away. So that's basically my indie patterns. What motivates me to keep a limited stash? So I'm looking at my stash right here, and there's 4 pieces in my stash. So if you watch my channel, you know I don't like having a fabric stash. So people often say that having or buying fabric and sewing are 2 completely separate hobbies, and I couldn't agree more, because I love sewing up fabric and I love enjoying wearing that pattern. I don't necessarily enjoy having a big stash of fabric. One, I don't have the space to put it, and 2, I get far more enjoyment by going online, choosing fabric to match a pattern that I've already decided, buying that, bringing it home, washing it, cutting it out, sewing it up, and then I have the garment. That's a process that I enjoy. I don't really enjoy having a stash or having it as a kind of collection like some people do, and if you do enjoy that, absolutely fine, but for me, I just enjoy the making part more than I enjoy looking at a fabric stash. So another question from that was, is my wardrobe full of me-mades? Yes, absolutely. To pardon the pun, it is bursting at the seams, which is why you'll probably see that I've been going into the whole bag making route recently, because I have enough clothes. I really do. I'm still going to make more. Don't worry about that. I've got plans for loads more. But yes, I have an awful lot of clothes right now. And my wardrobe style has shifted. As I mentioned, that I'm back in the office now. So I have been making an awful lot of casual stuff, now making more work stuff. So it's very, very tricky to balance wanting to sew for your hobby and then literally not having enough room. So what I do is I sew a lot for my boys. I start to sew a lot for little presents for people. So you still get that kind of sewing enjoyment, but you also get to gift as well. So that's the kind of route I'm taking, and maybe my garment sewing has dropped off ever so slightly, but it's been made up for in other areas. My favourite fabric shops. So I'm going to link all the ones I shop at down below. They're all Irish owned companies, which I love. I used to buy a lot from the UK a few years ago, but Brexit put a stop to that. I indulge ever so slightly sometimes and get it shipped to family in the UK. But the Irish shops that we have here are just fabulous. You can find everything you ever wanted and more. Generally women-run businesses, which is wonderful. I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of those business owners as well and going to their lovely shops, and we just have everything we need on our doorstep. We are spoilt for choice. So I never used to shop in person because I just didn't have access to that, but that's changed over the past number of years with the opening of some places in Dublin, and obviously travel opening back up again, that you can travel to other lovely shops. So I'll link them all below, and I encourage you all to take a look. They are all wonderful, and you'll notice that they're the ones I mention on my vlogs all the time. Not sponsored, not an ad. About losing your sojo and how to get over it. So it's not often that I lose my sojo. I lost it terribly when I was pregnant with my older boy, because I just felt so sick all the time. I just couldn't scroll on Instagram, so I had to put my phone away and I deleted a load of apps, but that came back very quickly. I think how I get my sojo back if I'm in a bit of a rut is I plan to make something for an occasion, and I don't mean a wedding or some big occasion. I mean literally, we're going to the zoo this Saturday. I'd like to make something new for that. Or I'm in the office next week and I've got a big meeting. I'd like to make something for that. It's little tiny things that I can plan towards because I love planning, and then I have the enjoyment of making it and then wearing it at that occasion. So I think that's how I get my sojo back. Also, I look to Instagram for inspiration as always, and it does come back. Or if you're not inspired to sew one thing, then try a bag, which is my new thing, or try a little present for somebody. So that's how I get over my loss in sojo, but it doesn't happen too often, thankfully. But when it does, they're the things that I use to get myself out of that. This was a very interesting question. Do I choose projects to increase my sewing techniques, or do I just learn what's required for each project if necessary? This is a very interesting one. So no, I don't tend to choose projects because of a technique. I think it just kind of happens as a happy accident. Like recently I made the Adam Sews hipster pouch. I did not realise there was so much binding in there, but I'm very glad there was, because now I'm all about the binding, and I've made one more hipster pouch and I've got plans to make more. That was just a kind of happy accident. So I don't necessarily seek out those projects, but I do always try and further my sewing skills. So if I notice something, then I will try and include that. From a kind of a technique thing, there is the big ones obviously, like sewing say a welt pocket or jeans, and I will definitely seek those ones out, but the ones that I've done so far have mainly been happy accidents, which is great. My most favourite make and why, and my favourite fabric to sew. So your favourite make is always your last one, it really is. But for my favourite makes, I love my heather blazer that I made last year, and also my swimming togs, my magnolia dress that I made recently, absolutely love that. So, and ones that kind of come out of nowhere really, so ones that are just a garment. So like my shirt dress that I made a couple of weeks ago, absolutely love that one, so very, very happy. My favourite fabric, probably jersey. But I'm moving into the kind of viscose, so the magnolia dress and the shirt dress I made recently were in beautiful viscose, and I loved making those. I cannot get on with viscose twill. I think I've sewn about 2 things with it now, and I just wanted to cry. I just can't get it. It's too slippery. It moves as soon as you look at it. I just find it really, really challenging. So I love jersey, that's my comfort zone, but I'm trying to branch out ever so slightly into the more viscosey fabrics, I think. Yeah, haven't tried denim, haven't tried vinyls, leather, things like that, so more to follow on those ones. How do you alter between sizes? So what I do is I have this, which is a French curve, and I pretty much always have to grade out between sizes. So I'm a classic pear shape, so my bust is smaller than my waist, is smaller than my hips, so I basically go out like a triangle. So, and in most, if not all pattern companies, I do have to grade out at least one side for my waist and one size again for my hips. I think apart from Love Notions, which I generally can make straight sizes in. So what I do is, if I'm printing out my PDF patterns, as always, hopefully they're layered, I then print out my 2 or 3 sizes, which makes cutting out much, much easier. I then get a highlighter and I start at the bust and I do, say, size whatever, say size 1. Then I draw the line to meet the size 2 at the waist, to meet the size 3 at the hips. And then I use the French curve, and I think it's calling truing up, where you basically join up those lines on a nice curve to make it a nice kind of blend of sizes instead of jutting out at angles. And that's basically how I do it. So I'll link the French curve below. It's a really, really useful bit of kit. And that's how I alter between sizes. So generally, yes, it's out between my bust and my hips. I would go 2, if not 3 sizes on most patterns. But isn't that the joy of making your own clothes? I also generally have to lengthen the sleeves. I would always, as a rule, add 1 inch, if not 2 inches to my sleeves, and that's just lengthening at the length and shorten lines and truing up that line again. I'll link below. I think Tilly in the Buttons has a great video on how to alter between sizes. I'll link that below. How do you know what fabric suits you? So this, complete trial and error. So I've now realised that mustard does not suit me, and purely because I've bought a few mustard fabrics and worn them and taken pictures and saying, oh, that doesn't look great on me. I do really enjoy the dual colours, so the dark greens, dark blues. I'm recently getting into yellow, which I never ever wore, but purely because I picked it up on a whim, held it up to me and said, oh, I like this a lot. So the beauty of being able to shop now in real life is that you can hold up the fabrics to your face. If you really like it, make a top out of it. If you love the fabric but don't necessarily think the colour suits you, make a skirt, make a pair of trousers, make a bag. So yeah, it's purely trial and error. And also I think you can really tell if you're wearing something and people give you a lot of compliments and are really kind of surprised by the way you look in a garment. I think that's something to do with the colours that really, really suit you. I know there's companies out there who do your colours, as it were, and basically you can tell what kind of colours suit you and what colours to avoid, what colours to use as a base, what colours to use as a top. So that's very, very interesting, which I might look into that in the future. I think could be an interesting topic. How many garments did it take for you to feel like things had clicked and you knew what you were doing? I still don't think I feel like that. I can probably make a t-shirt and make a good stab at a t-shirt and know what I'm doing, but for the others, every pattern is different, every technique is different, and I really should read the pattern properly before I start it. But in every pattern I think there's something new, there's something different. Even say inserting a sleeve, different fabric company or different pattern companies do it a different way, so you're learning all the time. So I think on certain things it has clicked that I generally know how to make a t-shirt. I can set in a sleeve, I can do a hem, I can do a mitered corner, these little techniques I've learned along the way. But I wouldn't say in any way, shape or form that I'm an expert, that I'm proficient at it. I would still consider myself maybe maybe an intermediate, maybe an advanced intermediate I call myself, but by no means an expert, as I've said many, many times in the channel, but I thought that was a very, very good question. Have I ever given up on any patterns? I've never given up fully on a pattern midway. I've given up after I've made it and realised that I really don't like it. Case in point, the Sew Over It Emma dress that I made in a Ponte a number of years ago. It did not suit me. It really, really didn't. I always try and finish the garment and try to give it the best shot, and at least even just learn how to make it if I can learn something new. But I've never given up really on a pattern mid-flow, as it were. And if I have given up on the garment when it's finished, I will always repurpose that fabric or gift it to somebody or donate to charity. So it's never fully lost. But I've been lucky that I've never really given up on anything because I do like to try and follow through to finish it and to try and learn as much as I can. But there have been a few fails after they've been finished, for sure. If I had to sew a garment for a public figure, who would it be, why would I do it, and what would it be? This is a fabulous question. So I had to have a real think about this, and the person I thought of was the actress Julia Stiles. I really, really like her, and I've always said in the movie of my life I would like her to play me. So I think we're probably exactly the same age, actually. So I really like her movies, Save the Last Dance, 10 Things I Hate About You, loved those movies, and she was brilliant in the Bourne movies as well. And most recently I watched her in a programme called Riviera, which she was married to this billionaire, and then it was all about the art world and about all that going on behind that, because he was then killed on his yacht, and oh, it was just fabulous. But the clothes in that were absolutely spectacular. If you Google Julia Stiles Riviera clothes, you'll see exactly what I mean. And even one of the promotional posters, which I'll find and try and pop it up here, she was wearing a blue flower dress. Beautiful. So I think that's the person I would choose. Why? I think because in that movie she was, or in that TV show, she was wearing clothes that I would like to wear myself. And what would I make? I think I'd make her a magnolia dress, just like the one I made a few weeks ago, because I think that would suit the style of that program perfectly if I lived in the French Riviera. So let's go back to the 5-year plan. So in 5 years I live in the French Riviera. So that is the end of the sewing questions. Moving on to the other category, and thank you very, very much if you are still here. I realise this video is really, really long. So other questions. When will I finish the walls? I laughed so much when I saw this question. So I'm in my sewing room. I've got my computer covered here with fabric. That is a plain plaster wall. This needs to be plastered. This needs to be painted. Need to paint the door. Need to change the carpet. Need to change the ceiling. So history. We got our attic converted late last year. So the stairs are now just outside this room. This room used to be the nursery. So it was about 2 or 3 foot big, 2 or 3 foot bigger than it is now. They had to bring in the wall slightly to make room for the stairs. So in doing that, they had to rebuild this entire wall and rehang this door. So this room now is, it's probably about 6 foot by 5 foot. It's a small room, people. So that's why this room has changed. And then we finished the attic and then kind of forgot about this room. So yes, we need to do it. We need to, is it called skimming the ceiling? Because it's got that funny kind of stippling thing at the, on the ceiling, which we don't really like. So we need to get that skimmed, and I want to paint the entire room and properly redo it. It's still got a bit of a nursery vibe in here. So I want to paint the walls. I found a colour that I really, really like. Kind of this colour really, but I've also found a wallpaper that I really like the look of, so I might do maybe wallpaper on one wall, paint on the others. So I need to replaster all of this, do the ceiling, replaster all this, repaint, do everything. I've got my beautiful French Seams sign there, which I really want to have prominence again. It's kind of hidden, and also I want to change the carpet, because this was the nursery carpet and it needs changing, but I want to put in wooden floors because I've got my sewing machine here, I've got my overlocker, and I can set up my little mini ironing board in here, and I've got a rolly chair and I want to be able to roll between them, and currently on carpet you cannot do that, and it's just covered in threads all the time. So yeah, that's plans for the room. Thank you for that question. I just laughed so much. It's a great question. Will I do more vlogs that follow me around? Yes, I loved doing that one I put out in May. I was able to do that because I had a lovely week off work. So generally, because I can only film in the evenings, that was a bit tricky. But I was able to do that every single day because I was off work, and it was really, really good fun. I sometimes do a Friday sews if I've got a Friday off work as well, where you follow me around for the day and see what I get up to and see what projects I get finished. I love doing those videos, so hopefully I'll do another few of those ones now in the future. But yeah, there's limitations to that, but they're the ones I really enjoy, and I also really enjoy watching those too. This was a great one. If you could travel to any city, where would you go, and where would I go fabric shopping? So heavily influenced by a travel program I watched recently. I would love to go to Marrakesh. It looks absolutely beautiful. Beautiful buildings, beautiful food. I'm a huge foodie, so very, very tempted by that. And I was in Dubai a number of years ago, and I remember going to the fabric souk, and I didn't sew back then, but I remember it so well, and I wish I had sewn back then because I would have bought so much. And I think Marrakesh also has that kind of thing as well. So I'd love to go to those cities and have a look through those souks. They just look absolutely spectacular. And again, the weather, because I'm a cold-blooded person, I need the warmth, I need the sunshine, which we do not get in Ireland. So I think a hot country with good fabric and good food, I think, would be my idea of heaven. This was hilarious. The most embarrassing thing that's happened. So I had a good think, and I think I've been lucky. I haven't had too many embarrassing things, but hopefully putting myself out there on YouTube isn't embarrassing. But the thing that I remember was, I think I was maybe 16, and I was in school, and in our school there was these things at the back that we called prefab. So our school obviously wasn't big enough for the amount of people, so we had these prefabricated buildings at the back, and they're just little sheds at the back basically. And I was in one of those, and it was pouring rain, and I opened the door to go into the classroom. I think it was late or something, I'm not quite sure why. The classroom was full, and my feet were all wet, went in the classroom, and my legs went from under me. I slipped on the floor, this horrible kind of lino plasticky floor. I went straight up and straight back down again. I remember it so well. I don't know, do any of my classmates remember it, but I remember it. So you can imagine a room full of 16-year-old girls when everything in life is embarrassing, but to literally fall so hard in front of your entire class, that was embarrassing. And you know, you do the thing of jumping straight up and pretending you're fine. I totally wasn't fine. I really hurt myself. But you pretend everything is fine, and you just go about your class, and you just want the ground to eat you up, because yeah, everything is embarrassing at that age, really. So great question. Thank you very much. Would I organise a sewing retreat in Dublin? So I recently had the pleasure of going to the sewing retreat hosted by Andrea from Beyond the Pink Door back in May, which was wonderful. So sewing retreats, from what I can see, they are a huge amount of work. So thank you, Andrea, for that. But they were just so much fun to meet sewing people in real life, to have the luxury of 2-3 days just sewing, going out for nice food, chat, just wonderful. So I would love to look into this. I won't take it on my own. I have a few contacts, I have a few people who I have in mind, and I will take that away and see what we can do, because that would be absolutely wonderful. If there's enough appetite for it, let me know. But yeah, sewing retreats are just fabulous. So if there is one in your area, I would encourage you to go. We're almost there, I promise. 2 more questions left. Which round of the sewing bee would I find the hardest? So for those of you who don't know, the sewing bee is in 3 rounds. The first round is the pattern challenge, where you're given a pattern just to make it straight out of the pack. Then the second round is a transformation challenge, where you're given the most random things like rubber gloves and deck chairs and tents, and told to make something, a garment for somebody, a garment for some occasion. Then the final round is the made to measure, where you're given a theme, and you then have to make a garment for a model or for a member of your family or whoever, so with their specific measurements, and get it to fit them perfectly. So the most challenging, I think, is a transformation. Without a doubt, you have to have some amazing imagination and creativity to form literally something out of nothing. So that one terrifies me, so I think that would definitely be the hardest. I think the made to measure would also be very, very tricky, fitting to somebody. I find it hard enough to fit to myself, let alone somebody else under time pressure. The one I would enjoy is the pattern challenge, the very, very first one, because you're literally given a pattern, you're given fabric, and you're just told to do it. And I think I would enjoy that round. I'd love to know how it'd fare under the pressure, actually. Be very interested to see. Not that I'm applying anytime soon. I can't apply anyway, but not that I will. And last question, how did I get to know the sewing community? So I joined Instagram, as I said, in about 2016, I believe it was, 16, 17. And I just started commenting on people's pictures and building up relationships from that. You kind of end up commenting on the same people's pictures or comments the whole time. If you've kind of clicked with somebody, in my case, people who have children around the same age, people who are in the same area, people who shop in the same fabric shops. And then from there, it just grew and grew. So obviously the pandemic didn't help, but after the pandemic, when things opened up again, I was able to go to the Dublin Sewing Meetups. So I'll link their channel below. So every month there's a meetup in a cafe where you just go and have chats with lovely sewing people, which is marvellous. I did go to Belfast Frocktails last year, totally out of my comfort zone. Didn't know anybody in real life. Had met a few people on Instagram, but nobody in real life. Took myself off to Belfast for Frocktails, and it was honestly the best thing I ever did. met the most wonderful people, had the most fabulous time, and then I was able to meet those people again in Dublin Frocktails this year. If you've heard me talk about Dublin Frocktails, yes, I talk about it an awful lot. But that was a wonderful way of getting to know people. And for people, I know it's a hugely out of their comfort zone to go into a room where you don't know anybody, but the sewing community is wonderful and it is welcoming. And I hope you got that same vibe if you did come to Dublin Frocktails, that we are a welcoming bunch of people. So I got to know people through that, through chatting, through on Instagram, through chatting to people on my channel here on YouTube, because a lot of times it's the same people who come back with comments after a video, which is wonderful. And it's basically through that, and then just kind of putting yourself out there to a certain extent, and maybe commenting on somebody's post, or maybe even direct messaging them saying, I really like this, could you give me some advice on the fabric or the pattern or the sizing? And it's just building up relationships like that. It is a wonderful community, it's a hugely supportive community, and if it is something that you'd like to do, then just reach out to people. Another thing that I mentioned obviously was going to classes, which is a great help, get to know people through that, and also going to open days. If a fabric shop or something near you has an open day, again, a great opportunity. And what I also do is, they mentioned it on the Love to Sew podcast a couple of years ago, to put hashtags on your posts on Instagram about your city and your country, and I thought this was a great idea. So you'll see on my Instagram account that all my posts have hashtag Dublin Sews, hashtag Ireland Sews, and I then follow those two hashtags, and then I can see who's popping up, and if I haven't followed them, then I will, because they're local people as well, which is really, really great. So that's my advice for getting to know people more in the sewing community. But as always, just reach out. It's the only thing you can do, and if it doesn't work, try again for another person, and I hope it does work out for you. So I think that's it. Thank you so much if you've stuck around for God knows how long this video is going to be, but I really do appreciate it. I appreciate all my lovely subscribers. Thank you so much for building this wonderful community around my tiny space on the internet. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I would love it if you subscribe to join my now 5,000 subscribers. So thank you so much. If you'd like to ask me a question that I haven't answered here, or you'd like a follow-on question, please let me know. Please leave a comment in the comments box below. And I hope you're all well. I hope you're having some lovely time for some lovely sewing. Let me know what you're working on. I'm hoping to come back to you maybe next week with a Friday Sews. We'll see how I got on. I've got a few projects going on here. A few things have gone well, a few things haven't gone well, so I'll let you know next week. But I really do want to say a huge thank you to everybody who watches my videos, everybody who's liked, everybody who's subscribed, and everybody who continues to come back to these videos. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. So I shall leave it there for now, and I shall talk to you all again very soon. Bye for now.